It is dangerous to surround yourself with people who only tell you what you want to hear. When you look around at the people surrounding you, do you see people who only agree with you or people who will call you up to a higher level by challenging some of your ideas, some of your thoughts, some of your concepts? Not that they are being mean, but simply that they are not yes ma'am men and they are challenging what you say. I want to talk to you today about what I am calling the dangers of agreeable circles. Let's take some time. Let's talk about that. Welcome to the Iron Pursuit Podcast, where men are forged by the truth of God's Word. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. This podcast is a call to biblical manhood. Here, we challenge men to rise above comfort, reject passivity, and live under the lordship of Jesus Christ. Each episode is designed to strengthen your faith, sharpen your character, and equip you to lead with integrity, grit, and grace. So whether you're a husband, a father, a brother, or a friend, this is your invitation to pursue the kind of manhood that honors God and changes generations. This is the Iron Pursuit. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. This podcast was actually inspired by a sermon that I preached recently. And as I was going through the study of 1 Kings, we got down to chapter 12, and this is after King Solomon has passed away and the kingdom is being passed on to his son Rehoboam. And Rehoboam has the concept that he is just going to take over the entire kingdom and he's going to rule it. And he doesn't know that the kingdom's going to be ripped away from him, that it'll actually be divided, and he'll only serve or reign over a small portion of that. But in the story, this is in 1 Kings chapter 12, the first 16 verses. In that story, you will see how that some of the people, the elders of Israel, the elders of the nation, they came to Rehoboam asking him for a little bit of take some of the pressure off, because you can just imagine how much pressure there was under Solomon's reign, because Solomon was a very rich man. He had a lot of building campaigns going on all the time. There was forced labor. You can imagine how much the taxes were. You can think, man, how big of an economical stress that this was on all of the people because of the money that they paid in for taxes just to finance the building projects that Solomon had going all the time. Well, Rehoboam is being questioned by some of these elders, and the scriptures actually call them the older men. And they tell him, hey, man, if you will serve the people will serve you, and we will keep moving right along just like we always have. We'll be a strong nation. We will be prosperous, and on and on and on. And so Rehoboam says, hey, give me 3 days and I'll come back to you. And then it says, I think, I'm just quoting this, but I think in 1 Kings chapter 12, right around verse number 8, it says that Rehoboam abandoned the counsel of the old men and went with the counsel of the young men. These young men were his contemporaries. They actually grew up together, and they had an idea. They were like, hey, we're going to keep taxing these people. We're going to keep working these people. We're going to do all this stuff. And I don't want to dig down into that and get stuck in all of that, but I think that it comes from just spoiled kids. They have grown up with Rehoboam. Rehoboam is a prince. He has been raised in Solomon's house. Solomon didn't lack for anything. He had a pretty luxurious life. In fact, if you were to go back into the scripture, and I'm quoting again, I'm just kind of going off of memory here, but I think it's in 1 Kings chapter 10, somewhere right around verses 8 or 9. I could be wrong about that, but it says that silver was so common in Israel that it was like picking up stones off the road. Silver was everywhere. So none of these guys really had much suffering in their life, right? And so I want to kind of talk to you about today the dangers of the people that you have around you. I've actually kind of given this the title, The Danger of Agreeable Circles, because whenever you have this circle of people around you and all they do is agree with you all the time, you will never be challenged. And I want to give you three dangers today about the three dangers of the agreeable circle. So if there's a principle that I could stand on with teaching you guys this, giving you this podcast, this episode, it would be this. This would be my principle. It is dangerous to surround yourself with people who only tell you what you want to hear. It is dangerous, so dangerous to surround yourself with people who only tell you what you want to hear. So whenever we think about the dangers of what we're going to call agreeable circles, I want to get to number one. If you live in the world of agreeable circles, you are going to become uncorrectable, okay? Uncorrectable. Pride in your life will go unchallenged. And this is the danger of this very first one. When no one comes along and challenges you, the pride in your life is going to grow. It is going to multiply. It is going to just spread pride spores all over the place. And it's just going to be like little mushrooms growing everywhere in the cracks and the crevices of all the dark places of your life. There are going to be these blind spots that stay hidden because you never expose the weaknesses in your life because you don't surround yourself with people who actually challenge you. And then sin is going to go unaddressed, okay? So pride has been known as the worst of all the sins. If you've never read any of his books, C.S. Lewis is a great author, okay? C.S. Lewis, he was actually asked this question. He said, the question was asked, what do you think is the greatest sin? Now, I want you to bear with me. I'm going to read through this, what C.S. Lewis's answer is, okay? This is what he answered. He said, and I quote, "There is one vice of which no man in the world is free, which everyone in the world loathes when he sees it in someone else, and of which hardly any people except Christians ever imagine that they are guilty themselves. I have heard people admit that they are bad-tempered or that they cannot keep their heads about girls or drink, and even that they are cowards. I do not think I have ever heard anyone who was not a Christian accuse himself of this vice." He goes on, "The vice I am talking about is pride or self-conceit. And the virtue opposite to it in Christian morals is called humility. According to Christian teachers, the essential vice, the utmost evil, is pride. Unchastity, anger, greed, drunkenness, and all that are mere flea bites in comparison. It was through pride that the devil became the devil. Pride leads to every other vice. It is the complete anti-God state of mind," end quote. Whenever you think about what C.S. Lewis says here about pride and how great of a vice that it is, he actually compares it to, well, I guess when I say compare, yeah, it would be comparing to humility. He said it's just right across the aisle. When it comes to Christian morals, it's right across the aisle of humility. So if you're always upset when someone opposes you or they disagree with you, you may have a problem with pride, and you may need to examine the people in your life, the people who are surrounding you. You see, it's healthy to have opposite opinions. That's actually one of the foundation, or I should say the foundational principle of this podcast. It's a Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. It's what we say, don't run from the clashing, because it's in the clashing where the iron is sharpened. The clashing that I'm talking about is whenever one person challenges an opinion or one person comes and says, hey, we need to work on this because I see an area here where there is some weakness. Proverbs 27:6 says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of an enemy. Friends who only agree with you are offering kisses, pleasant words that harm in the long run. They're these people that just always agree with you. They just kiss you on the cheek, proverbially kiss you on the cheek, and they're not doing you any good. Let's just be men for a minute, okay? Once in a while, we need to be slapped in the face. Once in a while, we need to be kicked in the rear end. Once in a while, we need to hear someone disagree with us so that our thoughts and our actions can be challenged and so that we don't keep going down the wrong road. Let's keep going with what Solomon says in Proverbs. Proverbs 12:15. He said, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. Do you listen to advice? When people are around you, the people that are around you, the people that are closest to you, maybe business associates, whoever it may be, whenever they give you advice, do you listen to it? If everyone agrees with you all the time, you'll start believing that you are always right. And let me just go ahead and give you a little bit of let me just pop the balloon if I can. You're not. You're not always right. You make bad choices. There are things in your life where you'll slip, you'll come up short sometimes. You're not always right. So it's good to have people around you who will disagree with you, all right? Let's go to number two. Number two, if you live in the house of agreeable circles, you drift into deception and error. So without truth-telling people in your circle, your thinking becomes warped, and you can fall into sinful patterns if they are left unchecked. Without those who are willing to tell you the truth, you will always submit yourself to the lies being told. You need people in your life who will be brutally honest with you, guys. You need these people in your life. If you see people who are constantly eliminating those who oppose their views, people who oppose their opinions, those who oppose their ideas, those people are prideful, and they only want to surround themselves with others who tell them what they want to hear. I've seen this before with bosses. I had a boss one time who got rid of anybody that didn't agree with him. It made no difference. This guy was always right. And anybody who opposed something that he said, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying they offered a different idea. He would find another way he'd find a way to get rid of them, put them on a different shift. I don't want them around me because if they don't want to do things my way, they can go and do that somewhere else. They didn't want to hear anybody else's opinion. They only wanted to surround themselves with folks that would tell them what they wanted to hear. Sadly, I've actually seen this before in pastors as well, people in churches. I've seen this with fathers who thought they had all the answers. And even whenever their wife tried to tell them something different, to where they were like, hey, what if we tried doing this with the kids? What if we tried to discipline our children in a different way? I'll be honest with you. Katrina, my wife, she has given me advice several times on what I should do to be a better dad or a better father to my kids. Not that I'm a bad father, but just in my day-to-day conversations with them, some of the things that I would say to them. Sometimes because I'm a brutally honest guy. Sometimes I'm rough around the edges when I speak, or I may say something that's actually true, but just because it's true don't mean that I need to say it. She said some things to me and kind of rebutted some of the ideas or some of the things that I've done. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't always like it. I didn't always think that it was a good idea. And there were times whenever I opposed her, and I began to realize very quickly that was my pride swelling up inside me, and it was trying to keep me from actually learning from the challenge that was being offered to me. So if you are a truth teller, Your time with a person like that boss that I'm telling you about who only wants certain people around them, if you're a truth teller, your time is going to be limited with that person unless you just keep your mouth shut. And I'm not trying to encourage you to keep your mouth shut and not talk about the truth and not tell the truth. You should tell truth. Always tell truth. But if you're the kind of person that offers different opinions around someone who only wants to be surrounded with folks who tell them what they want to hear, more than likely you're going to be eliminated sooner than later. When you are unwilling to listen to the opinions of others, your thinking becomes warped. Your thinking is warped because you have this idea that you're always right, and you can see no way to improve on the perfect specimen that you've become. I'm being joking. I'm joking there, okay? It's hyperbole, if you will. So this mentality is very corrupt and it's sinful. You've got to come to a place to where you are willing to accept the opinions of other people, all right? And I'm gonna dig into this just a little bit more. We have one more thought that I want to get to, but before we do, let me just give you a few scriptures to back up this second point. Think about this one. In 1 Corinthians 15:33, Paul said, "Do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals." Bad company ruins good morals. That's 1 Corinthians 15:33. You ought to highlight that one in your Bible. And what I want you to understand is that bad company, quote unquote, bad company isn't just immoral people. A lot of times we have it in our mind that bad means that they're immoral, they're not good, whatever. But bad company can also be people who just simply will not call you higher. Bad company can be people who simply will not challenge you. Bad company can be people who see the fault in the things that you're doing. They see the error in the things that you're doing, but yet they refuse to say, "Hey, man, maybe we need to look at this in a different way. Maybe we need to reframe this. Maybe we need to give this a different thought process." If you're unwilling to be challenged by those who think different than you, you will not last long socially. You will not last long in business, and believe me, you will not last long in companionship. And I'm talking about with friends, I'm talking about with marriage, I'm talking about with children. If you are not willing to be challenged, then you will not last in any of these arenas, okay? You just won't. Proverbs 11:13, the wise man, again, he tells us that where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. The Bible tells us that wisdom has something to do with seeking out counsel from other people, people who are wiser than you, who have more experience than you. But a man without honest voices around him eventually collapses. So I want to encourage you to surround yourself with people who can and will challenge you. So lastly, we'll move right on. Lastly, if you choose to make your home in agreeable circles, this is one thing you can guarantee is going to happen. You will stop growing, okay? You'll stop growing. All right, so what have we covered this far? This is where we've come from. Whenever you decide to make your home in agreeable circles, or you build it with agreeable circles, you become uncorrectable, right? Uncorrectable. Nobody can tell you anything because you are right. Secondly, you drift into deception and error. You just have a constant drift in your life. You keep going because you cannot be corrected. And now, lastly, you stop growing. Comfort replaces transformation. Whenever you build your home with agreeable circles, you stop growing, and comfort replaces transformation. Agreement-only environments stunt your spiritual, emotional, and relational growth. You will stay the same, and you will never, ever be sharpened. Now, I want to kind of caveat this just a moment. I'm not trying to suggest that you should never agree with people in your life. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the people that are in your life, that are closest to you, that surround you, that y'all should never have agreeable moments. You should have agreeable moments. You're never going to get anywhere in life if you can't agree on something, right? You're just not. What I'm saying is that there needs to be the opportunity, there needs to be the freedom for disagreement, for challenge, so that you grow from those challenges. All right. So let me just tell you this: if you have people in your life, these important folks in your life, I'm not suggesting that you should never agree with them. It only makes sense that there are some things that we must agree on. For example, I am a pastor and I have a church. Let's just think for a moment about church membership. If in order to be a member of a church, one must agree with the church's statement of faith and the church's core beliefs. And because Christian fellowship cannot be had if two people disagree on the basic fundamental principles of Jesus' earthly mission. What are some of the basic fundamental principles of Jesus' earthly mission? The virgin birth, we know that's part of it, is part of the doctrine, part of the principle. Jesus lived a sinless life. He died a sacrificial death for the sins of the world. It has to do with the resurrection, that Jesus did rise from the grave 3 days after his death. Jesus did all that he did to establish the church for the furthering of the gospel, the evangelism of the world after his ascension, and then finally, like his future return. All of these are basic principles of the Christian faith and Jesus' earthly mission. But we have to understand those things. You've got to agree on those things, because if you have somebody who let's just use like Christianity and Islam, like those two things, they are so doctrinally different. They are so fundamentally different. There can't be true fellowship between the two, and one cannot join in with the other. There has to be a change. There has to be this conforming one to the other. You have to be willing to transform, or you have to be willing to convert, if you will, to one from one to another in order to be in fellowship with them. And I'm not suggesting that you do that. I'm just saying that we have to have some agreement with other people so that we can come together, be unified, and move ahead with unity, okay, and have that one mission. But whenever you begin to think about church and membership, there are some doctrinal issues that simply do not hold weight on one's eternal destination. It's not going to play any role in a person's eternal security or anything like that. So disagreeing on some things that are biblically based, but yet they're just so easily misunderstood or whatever, things that don't have to deal with that. They don't deal with salvation, or they don't deal with restoration of the spirit, or any of these things. It's okay to disagree with those things. We can disagree and be challenged by these things. And when you do that with a fellow believer, it sharpens you. It just does. Again, Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another. Iron cannot be sharpened if there is no friction allowed. You must allow friction in your life. 1 Timothy 4:3, Paul tells young Timothy, the young pastor, tells him this: "For the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but they will have itching ears, and they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions." So surrounding yourself only with agreeable people is the definition of itching ears, okay? Just for instance, if you have this group of people, if you have this body of people, and let's say that they're the church, let's say that they are the deacon board, okay, and they need a pastor, and The reason they don't have a pastor is because they've run the other one off. They ran him away. You know, they don't want it. He's preaching something they don't like, and so they run him off. And so they're looking for another one. They want another one because they ran the other one off. The one they're looking for now is one who will just scratch their ears, scratch their itching ears, say the things that they want him to say. That's a church that'll never grow. And I'm just using that as an example because that's kind of where I am as a pastor. So surrounding yourself only with agreeable people is the definition of having itching ears. This also includes jumping around from like church to church simply because you're not getting your way. You want to find somebody that'll just tickle your ears and say exactly what you want them to say. Listen, guys, remember, I want you to remember this as I get ready to close this episode. The church is not Burger King, okay? We're not we're not here. The church is not here. The church doesn't exist to do things your way. We are here to do things his way, okay? We're always here to do things his way. And Jesus, whenever you think about Jesus's way, Jesus always was willing to challenge the men who were around him, okay? That's his way. And so if we're going to do things Jesus's way, we must be willing to be challenged, and we must be willing to challenge other people. So look, don't surround yourself with people who only tell you what you want to hear. Do yourself a favor, find people who will disagree with you, who will challenge you, and I promise you, in the long run, you will be a better man. Hey guys, thanks again for listening. Remember, share, like, and subscribe. If you think this podcast could help someone else, please share it with them. Check us out on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at The Iron Pursuit. If you're interested in my personal or marriage coaching, send me an email at theironpursuit79@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening. And remember, never run from the clashing, because that is where the iron is sharpened.